Hello, everyone. I know it's been a minute, but welcome to Shelf Care with Alicia. This time we're going to be talking about Atomic Habits by James Clear. I just got back from Hawaii, so I have some cool henna. Wish I was this cool to get like actual hand tattoos, but it's henna, it's temporary. Anyway, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Alicia Johnson. I'm a licensed therapist who loves to read. So I read the self-help books, the psychology books, all that stuff, and then I give you a little review so you can decide which ones are worth your time and which ones are worth walking past on the shelf because there's so many books, so little time to be able to read them all. I want you to enjoy the books that you read. So, I'm honestly surprised that I was able to get to this book this month because if I'm being honest with you, my life has been consumed with rereading the ACOTAR series. Not only that, but Throne of Glass, and I'm prepping for Crescent City. It's August 18th right now when I'm recording this, and the new ACOTAR book comes out in like 2 months. So that has really been consuming all of my reading time. I haven't gotten to read my fun therapy books in a while, but it's great because ACOTAR is incredible. So if you want to nerd out over that with me, let me know. But in the meantime, I guess we will talk about Atomic Habits. Um, let's see, I'm pulling up my notes because I had a lot of them and it's hard for my brain to remember things. This is a really common book. Let's see. I don't even know when it came out because I got it because one of my clients was reading it, and I love reading books with clients. Okay, so it came out in 2018, so it's actually about 8 years old. I only read it maybe a couple years ago, and then recently for my reread for this. And my client got it, and so got the name of it, and I was like, oh my God, this sounds incredible. It is called Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Like all of it says it's packed with evidence-based self-improvement strategies. Will teach you how to design habits that work for you rather than against you. Proven framework, 1% better every day, practical strategies, how to master tiny behaviors. Like, I love all of that. What I really love is the tiny and the small because that's a big part of my therapy work is I think a lot of times we think, oh my gosh, I have to suddenly change everything or immediately become really good at this. And when it doesn't work, which it doesn't often happen right away, we get sad, we get disappointed, we give up, we go into these spirals. And so this had a lot of hope and a lot of words that I was really jazzed about. Um, Overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5, which isn't awful, which isn't awful. I actually have a lot of clients who like it, so take what this is the point of this, right? I give you my thoughts, and then you get to decide if it's worth it for you. So I give it a 3 out of 5. I really wanted to give it more because, like I said, I love so many of the mindset of like this slow, steady, gradual habit building. Oh, my cat might join us, so we will see. We're just going with it today. We're running on a couple hours of sleep, still jet lagged from Hawaii, wanting to read ACOTAR, and here we are. So I really got back to it, really wanted to like it. I just couldn't. Looking back now that I've done a few of these reviews, I think in hindsight, I can understand why I didn't like it. But in the moment when I first bought this book and when I first started to review it, a couple years ago, I didn't have the same reviewing skills that I have now. And that I'm hoping, you guys figure out your own type of reviewing skills as you go on this journey. So I've actually never actively recommended this book to clients, even though I've had clients read it and they share what they want to talk about it, like fully support them on their journey using whatever language they like to do. That's great for them. If it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it. But I've never actually recommended this book to other clients, and I love recommending books to clients. So I've learned, so part of that is because I've learned from my own, I don't know if red flag is the right word, but maybe an orange flag when it comes to some of these self-help books. There's just certain language or things that I don't think are as helpful or applicable or authentic, or I don't know, I'm still teasing apart what that stuff means for me, but I'm getting better at noticing what some of these things are where I'm like, if I would have seen this book now on the shelf, I know I would have passed up on it. So here are some of the words that I don't love. We're already going to start with the subtext of an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Number one, the word easy. Anyone who has ever changed anything ever in their life, so everyone knows that change is not easy. Even good change. Even a good, exciting, helpful change, our body still has an adjustment period to it. So the fact that we're starting it by saying, well, this is really easy, don't love that. Also, when reading the book itself, not all of it's easy. Like, and that's going to go into something that I'm going to talk about more, but I was like, okay, already on the cover page, single thing is easy. Because then, let's say you read this book, you buy it, you're like, great, I want to do this, I'm going to try these things, and if it's hard for you, guess what? You're gonna feel like crap. You're gonna be like, what the heck? It's supposed to be so easy. Why am I having a hard time? And then we start spiraling, and it's just not helpful for anyone, especially yourself. So, easy, now a red flag for me. Also, proven. I get that that's like a hot science word. We like evidence-based. Proven is a way where it's like, ooh, this isn't, just like wants them to feel like they're an expert. And I get it. I get it. I don't want just like some random person to be like, hey, this worked for me. So there you go. Like, I do appreciate research. But anytime it says proven, it's just like, first of all, scientists don't actually use the word proven. I know because I am married to a researcher and he doesn't say things are proven. We might say like things support, but if you actually know the scientific process, which sadly I know too much about because I love my husband and I listen to him talk a lot about his research, you don't really prove things. So not only is it easy, but it's proven. Like, now I know those are my red flags. You might love those words. That's okay. We're different humans. But context matters and our brains are different. So I just don't love any of that BS that doesn't take into account that consideration. So there's my TED Talk. Despite that, I did like some of the things. So if you have bought this book and it's been on your shelf, I don't know if you can see my shelf. It might not be a complete pass, so here's some things that I liked that maybe you'll like as well, and it might be worth your time. So honestly, it's a very visual book, which can be really helpful for some people. And I guess I shouldn't say super visual, but there's enough visuals in there where it just like breaks up the text and it some people are just visual learners. So I really liked that there were different things to help explain things. There were different charts, there were some graphs, there were different tables, and I like those visuals about just like showing how positive things can grow, especially with the small emphasis. That is one of my favorite things about the book, probably the only thing I like about the book. Um, but it's like, 'cause again, our brains are like, I can think about the end, I can think about where I want to be. And to me, it seems like I have to do these really grand, big things. And this book does a great job of showing how, like, one small thing, 1% change, one tiny thing can get us to this really big, powerful space. And so I really loved how much it highlighted the power of small progress. The examples were really relatable of just like finding the smallest thing that we can do to reach some of those goals. There were lots of examples about those things. And so, in that way, I'm a big fan of how he showed these tiny changes can help get to our really big goals. I guess I was being a little dramatic because there were a couple other things I liked. It also challenges this goal focused thinking, which is something that I do a lot of in like my therapy world, but also in some of my social media posts. I don't really set like New Year's resolutions, or a lot of times goals are outcome based. And it's almost like, well, okay, let's say I want to lose 10 pounds. well, cool, what happens once I get there? It's not really like sustainable for me to keep those behaviors up. Or once I do something, I cross it off the list, and now what? So it focuses more on the outcome versus the process of how we're getting there. And so I like more intentions and hopes and things like that. And a lot of that did overlap with the language that they use in here, which also helps these sustainable changes. So it's not just like, cool, I ran a marathon, now I never have to run again. It's like helping you become a runner with these habits who just happens to be able to run a marathon. So I really liked that. That aligned well with me and how I work with clients, and also just makes it more sustainable, which is really the point of a habit. It's not just to like help us get to the finish line. It's to help us create these long-term things. One of the things that I also got away from this book that actually like did change my perspective of things, and maybe I already kind of had some of the philosophy, but I didn't quite have the language for it, is this like identity aspect to our habits. So I'm a huge language person. If you watched any of my videos, if you know me in any of my other adventures, you know how important language is and how nitpicky I get, and I could spend an entire hour talking about like a single word. So there's part of his philosophy is, the language that we use when we talk about habits really impacts our behaviors. Of course, right? But if we say like I'm not an active person, like I'm not an active person. I'm bad at this. I suck at sports. I am lazy. Like those types of things. When we say an I am or I'm bad at, that's like our identity. Like that feels like that's something that cannot change. Well, if I'm bad at directions, then I'm never going to be able to learn those things. If I'm just not an active person, then I'm never going to be able to enjoy working out. Like it just feels like it's such a part of us, and it makes it feel like it's really inflexible and doesn't really provide a lot of hope or forward movement for us to be able to work on maybe some of these habits that are going to reach us to our goal. So instead, it kind of talks about like I'm I'm a runner, or I am an active person. The thing is, being a runner doesn't mean that we have to run a marathon. You become a runner anytime you put on your running shoes. You can run around your driveway and you can call yourself a runner. Like it just helps. And then you start being like, yeah, well, I am a runner. So if I'm a runner, then I can do these other things that other runners do. If I am a energetic person, then it doesn't have to be all the time, right? It doesn't have to be black and white. I love laying on my couch, reading, snuggling with my cat. But if I say that that's the only thing of who I am, and let's say I really want to do my yoga or go for a walk, or I do line dancing with my friends now, like that requires energy. So it doesn't mean I have to be energized all the time, but it's also not saying, well, I don't have energy ever. It's not that black and white thinking. So it was just a really strong section that helped us kind of think about the language we use, how we describe ourselves, and if we're trying to work towards something, instead of saying, well, I'm not this, can we explore maybe a more helpful, accurate way? Because it doesn't have to be to these extremes. Not every runner is going to run a marathon. That's okay. So be a little gentle with yourself. There was some like repetitive things, which I actually don't hate. There was some things about like habit stacking, which I think is a common strategy, but they just do a good job of like explaining it and giving some practical examples. So if you do really want like tangible things to get like closer to your goals and some of these habits, then this book did a good job of like giving you things to try. I know some self-help books, I'll just be like, think differently, try harder, just do it. And I'm like, Okay, like that is so not helpful. So this book actually does give you a lot of tangible things to try. So if you are looking for that, that could be a super helpful thing for you of just like giving you little like assignments to try and things to do and play around with. Lots of tangible things there. It also did a good job of helping. This is a pro and a con, um, but it did acknowledge like some things aren't always easy, which again, why is this on the title of your book then? I digress. But like we can do things to make it easier for our brain. So if things aren't automatic, well, what can we do to change our environment? So these choices are maybe a little bit easier, or it's more front of our mind, or it's just going to be working with our brain, our bodies, our context to set it up more for success than just like forcing it and thinking, well, like we should just be doing this because we should. Like, no, our lives are complex. It's not always going to be that easy. So I did like that they acknowledged it. I'm going to talk more a little bit about how I think we could have gone a little bit deeper in it, but that might be a different subject for a different book. All right, I guess I did like enough things about this. One of the other big things that stands out is they do a great job of explaining how shame and anxiety are actually not good motivators. What? This is not news to me, but I know it's a really tough thing for some of my clients to hear. And it's because I think in our society, we think of guilt and shame as motivators, right? We're like, well, if I feel bad that I didn't make it to the gym today, then that's going to be extra motivation for me to go tomorrow. Like, in theory, I understand why you think it would work that way, but in practice, our brains and body just don't work that way. Um, if I feel like crap, if I start using negative self-talk and I feel ashamed, I feel worthless, I feel exhausted, I'm losing hope, I'm just going deeper and deeper into that dark place. And guess what? That's not forward moving. I'm going to get stuck there. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be like, what's the point of this? And it's just easy to go, go, go deeper into that. Instead of if we give ourselves grace and self-compassion, that's actually a motivating force. So, hey, you miss a day? Okay, try it again like a different day. Like you're human. Cool. So I really like that they called out. We're not trying to shame ourselves. We're not trying to produce all this anxiety and pressure. Like those are not sustainable practices. So good. Because with here, like a lot of the language in here, you would think that they'd be like, just tough it out and all this stuff, and like you're awful if you don't do this. That was not the message I got at all in this book. Um, One of the other things that I liked, and this is kind of like the epitome of the book, is something that he calls like the 2-minute rule. But basically, it's finding like the smallest thing you can do. And I kind of hinted at this with the identity thing. So it's like a lot of that area in the book was really good. I think one of the stronger areas of the book. But the 2-minute rule is essentially starting really small instead of jumping into it right away. So instead of saying, I'm going to read every night, try, I'm going to read one page. When we start doing these absolutes, first of all, it's just really exhausting, right? Like, oh my gosh, I have to do this forever for the rest of my life. Like that. I don't know about you, but like my angsty teen comes out in me and is like, I don't want to. But if we say read one page, okay, one page really isn't that difficult depending on the book, and that's a little bit more manageable than read every night. Well, what does read mean? Does that mean read a chapter, read a book, like read one page? I can figure that out. And so it just helps us getting started because sometimes just getting started and figuring out what this even looks like, that can be a really hard part for some people. And so that's a thing that I kind of do with folks already is like, we'll start for 5 seconds, start for 15 seconds. Like I said, run around the driveway. You can call yourself a runner. I don't care if you're running a marathon. Like, if you are a reader, read the back of a cereal box. Like, I don't care what you are doing. Just do something that feels genuine for you. So, I did like that. All right. So, there were more things than I remembered liking about the book than I disliked. So, a lot of the themes I did like and could see how it would be helpful for some people. I can see how some of my clients enjoy it. Um, but honestly, I'm looking at my notes now, and there were a lot of things that I didn't like. And when I rated this book, I actually rated it when I first read it with my client, and I rated it a 3 out of 5. I think if I were to reread it entirely, like I skimmed it for this review, and there was a reason I skimmed it because I didn't love it. I think I was being kind of generous with my rating. I think if I were to rate it now, I would do like a 1.5 or 2. I know. I know I can be so mean. Um, but this time around, I definitely noticed more of like a condescending tone. So even though it wasn't shameful, again, like he did do a great job of like acknowledging that like shame is not a motivator. It just felt really I have no other word than condescending. Like it just there's all this like math and these statements that are like, here's how smart I am and look at how impressive this is. And then they give the practical tools and it was not my jam. It felt like it was like things that we should already like. It felt like he was sharing things like felt like we already know, kind of oversimplifying things, or at the other end, like making really simple things like really complicated. Um, and then, yeah, I don't, I can't really explain it better than just like it felt like a condescending tone. And so if I'm reading something that's supposed to inspire me and help me, I just like noticed my own walls coming up and like wanting to combat that. And I was like, there might be something for me to kind of reflect on there. So if you are reading something like that, you notice that in your own reading journey, that could be a sign that like something is not fitting well for you. I kind of mentioned the other con earlier is that I think it just like oversimplifies behavior change. Um, when I talk about like it being easy, like that's the first word in the book, like an easy, improving way. Nothing is easy. I logically know that drinking water is good for me. I have access to it. I have all these things. Me drinking more water is not easy. It's a simple thing. Drinking water at my desk, I could do, drinking water before and after some movement. I could, like, there's a lot of ways I can think of that are simple things that would help me feel better in my body, like drinking water. That does not mean it is easy. So I think some people misuse simple and easy because a lot of these things, even if they are simple and small, it's not easy. Also, there's just no mention of barriers that people go through that make these habits difficult. It was a very privileged way of writing about change that doesn't take into account like mental health struggles. It doesn't take into account any caregiving responsibilities. If you are in poverty, if there's these systemic barriers there, like if you are working 4 jobs, going from place to place, your schedule's chaotic, and you're like, well, you know what you just need to do? Put your running shoes by the door, and it's gonna fix everything. Like, no, not really. So I get that this book might not be for everyone and maybe more for like a privileged space of if you have a lot of like time and energy to be able to dedicate to change. And I say that because change is not easy and it does take work. It takes effort. I think people are fully capable and have amazing resources and resilience to do it, but easy is not a word that I would use. And I don't think this book really acknowledges that. It felt just like very like just I know I said this earlier that it didn't say just do it, but it felt like it's just simple and like it's linear and if you do this one thing, then everything's gonna work out and like y'all. Human beings do not work that way. It does not take a systemic approach to that. Most books don't though. So I didn't mention this in the beginning when I was diving into like some of my red flags, but one of my other red flags in a book is when people use the language good and bad. So back to the cover, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. I don't use the language good and bad. So that one's on me for like, again, I ignored that red flag early on. But that's just not how my brain thinks. I don't like to use language good and bad. I don't think it's helpful. I think it's very polarizing. I think it's very black and white, and there's a lot of gray there. Um, Also, I think it kind of is shaming. Like, he literally talks about how shame isn't the goal of his book, and I fully do agree with his messaging on that. But then we're like labeling certain behaviors as bad. And I don't use that language in my personal life, in my therapy life. I don't use that language. Instead, I think about things like, is this a helpful habit? Is this a sustainable habit? Is this a functional habit? Because even our unhealthy, I don't even use the word healthy, because even our bad or our unhealthy habits, they make sense in that moment. Some of our bad habits keep us alive in really tough moments. Some of our unhealthy and bad things are natural things that we've observed from other people in our life because we don't know any different. So instead of being like, well, that's bad, well, cool, now I'm gonna feel like crap some more. Great. I'm gonna change then. Is this a helpful thing? Maybe it was helpful at one time, but is it still helpful? What helped me in my deepest stress and burnout are not the same things that help me when I'm in a more supportive, resourceful environment. What helped me in the short term might not be sustainable in the long term. So, if the options are doing something really harmful to yourself or others, and the only thing that's going to keep you from doing that is spending 8 hours a day on video games or Instagram, you bet I'm gonna want you to do sitting on TikTok or video games. Like, yeah, of course. Now, how sustainable is that for the rest of our lives? Maybe not. So again, there's the context matters, right? So it might be a short-term thing, it might not be a long-term thing. So just like good and bad kind of implies, well, there's like this right or wrong, this black and white thing, and that just it just doesn't really work with a lot of our context. So is it helpful? Is it sustainable? Does it serve a function? Protective even? Like what are some of these things that we can do? Um, okay. The other thing that stands out to me is a lot of the behavior talked about like repetition, and it just felt very rigid when talking about repetition. So what do I mean by that? So there is research that supports that to build habits, it does require repetition. It does require some sort of consistency. But we don't really define what consistency means. And the way that he describes consistency is a little bit more rigid. And again, it falls into that good, bad, black, white, right, wrong, healthy, unhealthy, like this type of mentality that just doesn't really work for a lot of people, let alone in our everyday lives. So I like consistency and regular. Doesn't have to mean every day, doesn't have to mean perfect every time. It just means more than one time, right? Because a lot of times I see people like set these goals where it's like, okay, I'm going to work out every day. That's great for a lot of people. Actually, I don't think it's great for a lot of people, but I'm not your therapist, so you do whatever you want. But let's say you get sick and you have to miss a day. Do you see where this is going? If you if your brain is saying, well, I have to do this every day, I have to do this, I can't miss it, I have to be rigid, I have to make this happen at any cost whatsoever, What happens if you can't? What happens if you don't want to that day? There's no room for flexibility. Instead, we go, well, I guess I'm lazy. What's the point? I should just give up then. I'm never going to be able to achieve this. That's a lot of pressure. That's not sustainable at all. So I think I get that we need repetition, we need consistency, but that's not rigid. We get to kind of define what that means. We can have some flexibility there that I don't think was really explained in the book. Um, the last thing is, never mind, I've got lots of thoughts, just kidding. Um, they used a lot of absolute language. That's pretty common in a lot of self-help books. So you know I'm going to rate a book higher when they don't use that absolute language. But these are actual statements that I took from the book. Never go backwards. Never produces an outcome. Make bad habits impossible. How did those make your body feel? Because I didn't like saying those. Like, never go backwards instantly. I was like, I want to I'm gonna watch this back and see if I can like see my body cringe up with that because, ah, that's not sustainable. That also shows you have no idea how change happens. Like, I'm just gonna go up this super linear thing and never make a mistake and never learn and never try anything new and everything's gonna turn out perfectly. No! Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we mess up. Sometimes we go backwards. Sometimes we go super backwards. Sometimes we learn something new. Like, never go backwards. Oh my God, the pressure that puts on someone. Again, just absolutely like, no, that's not helpful. So, no, I have no other notes on that one because I'm not going to say anything nice. Um, the other thing is, and this is kind of like what I keep getting at. So this, okay, this is the last. I could have got one more. Second to last thing. There's not a lot of grace. So what I mean by that is I keep talking about that black and white language. It's very rigid. So it literally talks about just like doing habits every single day, but it doesn't talk about when people travel, if you have kids, if our mental health fluctuates, if we have any physical health things. And it just felt very like privileged because it's like we're just always going to be able to do these things. And it doesn't talk about, well, what happens if a real life thing happens? How do we do that without shaming ourselves and feeling like crap? So anyway, this is just like a tangent. This isn't actually this was a super small part of the book. But there's a recommendation about finding an accountability partner, which honestly I don't hate. I don't hate. Sounds nice. But then literally the reasoning for it, so it's like the text was like, find an accountability partner. And I'm like, ooh, okay. I love social support. I love not doing things in isolation. This is great. And then the words are literally like, because you don't want to disappoint them, right? You don't want to be judged if you don't follow through on something. And I was like, oh, that's not a very nice place to go to. I don't want my friends to shame me if I need a rest day. I don't want my support system to be like, "Oh, I'm disappointed in you because you didn't do this habit perfectly every single day because you're human and life happened." Like it was just peer pressure. And I'm like, that's literally using shame as a motivator. And I'm like, bro, you literally spent 90% of the book talking about how shame isn't a good motivator. And then we want social shame to be a motivator. That was weird. So, like I said, take that was like just this tiny part of the book, but it bothered me enough that I really wanted to still make note of it. So overall, as you can see, there were good elements to it. It wasn't my cup of tea. It's not something that I recommend for people, but I do have clients who have enjoyed it. So if you are on the fence, keep reading reviews, keep thinking about it. I would honestly probably only recommend this to people who want super straightforward behavioral change. Like you want someone to just give you like this little equation and you follow it. It's concrete. You're not doing any reflection. You're not really doing any insight work. You're not getting any like deep work out of it, but it's just like it gives you something to do. And if you want to do that, I think it's worth exploring this book. That's not my jam, but it can be someone else's jam. So you just have to know what your jam is, essentially. So if you want anything deeper, though, more systemic, more full of grace, I would look elsewhere. So let me know if you've read it because I do love folks who have differing opinions than me. I'm one human, I have one brain, I have one experience. I want to know what your thoughts are on it. If you agree with any of my criticisms, if there's things that maybe I overlooked. I love having mature conversations about these things. Also, if you have ideas for the next book, I promise I'm gonna get through the Akatar and Sarah J. Maas verse pretty soon, so then I will be able to read more for work. And I need some good ideas. I have a couple that I'm toying with. Nothing's like super standing out to me. So if there's a book where you've heard of and you want to hear some hot takes on it, let me know. And I don't need any excuse to read a book. So if you tell me to read a book, I'm gonna read a book. In the meantime, I hope you are reading so many good things. I hope you are taking care of yourself. So until next time, I'm Alicia.